The Super Bowl will be held at Levi's Stadium at the end of this season. In 2027, the big game goes back to Los Angeles and SoFi Stadium, but to the southeast in 2028 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. After, we don't know where it will be, and that's why I'll predict the Super Bowl cities and stadiums after 2028, so you won't be shocked what happens next. In 2029, I believe the Super Bowl is going to go back to Las Vegas. It's a great destination. There's a lot of places to go, certainly stuff to do. You've got the gambling aspect with the casinos. You can go out there. Certainly people are going to be wealthy if they go to the Super Bowl, play a ton of golf. There's also a ton of parks and other stuff you can visit nearby, places to eat, obviously gambling, trouble to get into, but not only all that, Las Vegas has also already been in discussion apparently with having another Super Bowl at the stadium and inside the city, so it just makes too much sense. It didn't seem like anybody was complaining about the Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl that was held there. In 2030, speaking of warm weather, back to Phoenix, Arizona, the Super Bowl, always a good spot to go to at State Farm Stadium. Also another stadium you could say at this point, maybe not the same amenities as a SoFi Stadium or Allegiant Stadium, but a very nice stadium to watch a game. You've got the roof design as well, some natural light gets in. Plenty of seats in the stadium too, which is a very important thing. You have all the suites as well, which I know the NFL wants for the big game. And then the stuff to do around the stadium, you've got the entire Phoenix area. There's a million places for the people that are wealthy, I'm sure, to come in, play golf and stuff, and then go attend the Super Bowl, or you could even go out, go to some of the parks around the state. I mean, there's just a million things to do there. There's a lot of money in the area. A lot of people have moved there. Would be a missed opportunity not to get back to Phoenix. In 2031, Nashville, Tennessee, I believe will host the Super Bowl at the new Nissan Stadium. Now, one thing that's interesting about this stadium is there is a smaller capacity to be expected from all the blueprints that I've understood, but I still believe the NFL will kind of make an exception here, and I just note that because there was kind of a referendum that came out years ago about what the NFL expects for its host cities that host the Super Bowl. A lot of the times I think they want a stadium that can hold at least 70,000 people, but it looks like Nashville's new stadium will come short of that. However, with all the luxury seating and the money to be made there, plus speaking of things to do around Nashville, I think this is a good opportunity. It's also a growing city, and it just seems like a pretty decent town to be in February, especially because, speaking of warmer weather, while it's not going to be as warm as Arizona or Texas, it's going to be a decent spot. The winter isn't too harsh in Nashville, so I'm sure the league wants to show off this new stadium coming to Tennessee and will be the future home of the Titans. And in 2032, I believe Houston, Texas can get another Super Bowl. You have NRG Stadium there, and a lot of people have criticized the stadium for aging somewhat poorly, but it is still pretty state-of-the-art. And not only that, as being a newer stadium in a really big city there in Houston with stuff to do, they've also got a big city, plenty of hotel space. You can definitely fit in at least one more Super Bowl here before you get all these other stadiums that start to erect and make it really difficult. But in that prime kind of location, middle of the country but southern, to get some warmer weather, I think Houston is a good situation to hold a Super Bowl, even if people want to criticize the stadium a little bit. In 2033, New Orleans, Louisiana probably gets another Super Bowl at the Caesars Superdome. It's funny because this is a older stadium, but they've done renovations to make it look a lot newer. Got plenty of luxury seating and places to sit. Also, the city around it really sets up well for the NFL because of the hotels. There's stuff to do, the Mardi Gras celebrations going on, the food and the culture, everything is there, plus warmer weather that time of the year. And if you look historically, New Orleans has hosted a ton of Super Bowls over the year for all those conditions, so there's no way they don't go back. In 2034, Los Angeles, California should get another Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium. More than enough hotel space, more than enough seats in SoFi. There are plenty of places to sit. Obviously, all the modern bells and whistles. It's a beautiful stadium to show off, and it was a big success from the Rams and Bengals already played there. So again, another stadium that should get a few Super Bowls, certainly in this beginning stage of its lifetime. And in 2035, I think that the NFL will go a little outside the box here. Go to Chicago, Illinois at the new Chicago Bears Stadium. So this one's a little in lingo because I don't think they've locked in anything as far as what the Bears will, what the stadium will be, where it's going to be at, yada, yada, yada. But even if it falls the smaller capacity, which I think is the blueprint of a lot of these newer stadiums, I believe the NFL certainly still going to want to go there, especially because Chicago really hasn't been able to host a Super Bowl. It's right in the Midwest. There will be a little cooler weather, but I think with the other things going on as far as stuff to do and a big market, that's going to overcome the other conditions that might be dragging it down as a host city. And I'm assuming the new stadium is going to be very nice, and the NFL would like to show that. So Chicago would be a cool new city to go to if they get that stadium up. In 2036, Miami, Florida should get another Super Bowl at Hard Rock Stadium, and they might even do a renovation by that that point, who knows? But with the Hard Rock Stadium down there, they really did a number, by the way, of renovating that when they put the overhang and all that kind of stuff. The stadium used to look a little flimsy, a little ugly almost, but they repainted the seats. The overhang was a big thing. They also did some other renovations, so that really saved the stadium, and they definitely get good use out of it too. They have a ton of events down there. But anyways, there's going to be beautiful weather in Miami that time of the year, a million things to do, places to be. In South Florida, you've got Miami Beach, so many different areas in that atmosphere, so everybody would love to go back down there. Speaking of successful Super Bowls, Chiefs and Niners again played there, but that time was in 2020, and it didn't seem like anyone had a complaint. Out of the box, this one would definitely be different, but Washington, D.C., I believe, can get a Super Bowl at D.C. Stadium, and I think it would take a few years maybe to establish more amenities around the stadium that is proposed to be built up, but I believe once they do that, it's going to host a Super Bowl and get the NFL out to the nation's capital. But if you haven't heard, the Commanders trying to put up a new stadium there, and that one would be kind of the state-of-the-art natural light, looking like a very modern architecture and plenty of nice seats, you know, the whole picture of a lot of these stadiums, and they would go indoor like a lot of these teams have done. And with that being indoors, you can obviously get a better bid to host a Super Bowl, so I think by that point, Washington, D.C. gets one. Going back to tradition, Atlanta, Georgia at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium should get another Super Bowl by 2038, and there's such a good stadium in the rotation, there's no reason that honestly Atlanta couldn't get another Super Bowl by 2033. But the thing is, with Atlanta, it's getting into the point where all these stadiums, the new ones, are opening to where it's having to compete with more, like even the great stadiums like, let's say, Allegiant or SoFi and everything. With these new stadiums opening, it's not like they wouldn't be a good host city, but it's just competing with others again, so you're kind of drawing it down the list a little bit here, and I think that's why it's going to take a little more time for Atlanta to host again. But I mean, the stadium is beautiful, especially if you haven't seen it in person. Very beautiful with the floral opening almost up top of the natural light. They have the glass. The seats are very nice. I mean, everything and more. Plus the concessions, the way they run that, at least for the Falcons games, have actually been a little more inviting. So they do stuff different, and it definitely pans out. And I didn't even hit on the area around Atlanta. Obviously, there's more than enough stuff to do down there in February. And then in 2039, I have another one out of the box. Cleveland, Ohio at Huntington Bank Field, I believe, can get a Super Bowl. And I think with this stadium, they will want some more amenities around Cleveland, maybe to get the host bid, plus make sure they've got the lodging and the logistics all settled out by then. But I believe by 2039, that's more than enough time to, number one, build the new stadium there in Cleveland, which is proposed, and then number two, get all your ducks in a row to host, and then steal one from one of these other good cities to host, and eventually Cleveland gets its Super Bowl. 2039, that should be a nice way for the NFL to get to Ohio, which it doesn't usually do for Super Bowls. And our last one, prediction here, in 2040, I think Kansas City, Missouri gets one at new Arrowhead Stadium. Now, this is definitely taking a wild card here, but I believe with all the rumblings of the Chiefs, it seems like they're going to, number one, either get a new stadium or two, get a renovation at some point. And it seems like the renovation is more likely, and maybe they'll renovate Arrowhead to make it indoors or some type of like overhang where it's going to be comfortable for the fans, even in February, something like that. We'll see how it pans out. Plus, there's all the new development around Kansas City and Arrowhead. If they do that, you would think it would just help the bid. Remember the NFL when MetLife sprung up, because of that just being a new stadium in New York, the NFL did take the untraditional route and actually host the Super Bowl out there, even though it was a colder weather atmosphere and a colder weather game, colder weather city, all those things. I think the NFL would definitely be able to make an exception here to Kansas City, even with that being outdoors. And another thing too is that even in a cold weather event, you look at Kansas City, same like Minnesota and Minneapolis, they can handle some of the problems that can go wrong if there's like a snowstorm or something. Whereas when the NFL went to Jerry World and AT&T Stadium for the Super Bowl, things didn't necessarily pan out because there was an ice storm, and Texas isn't really handled. They don't put the funds in to basically clear the roads off and stuff like that when there's a snowstorm coming in, because it doesn't make a lot of financial sense. It's rare that it happens. So in the case of any worst case scenario weather, Kansas City can handle it. And wanted to take a moment to give thoughts on who missed the cut here. So Buffalo at the new Highmark Stadium, that one should be opening before any of these actually, but the stadium, I feel like they should be taking advantage of the outdoors in Buffalo, which they will do, but that probably means the NFL would need a good excuse to go there because it's going to be cold on game day. But really factoring in more here just than that, because I just made an exception for Kansas City, there's going to be a smaller capacity too, approximately 62,000 seats. And then the big problem logistically, from what I understand, on a lot of hotel space in Buffalo, and the stadium is not necessarily a travel easy to commute to revenue situation. So I think all those things keep Buffalo out of the Super Bowl host window. And I think the league stays away again from Minneapolis at US Bank Stadium. The stadium did host Super Bowl 52. That was a fun game, but it did seem like the activities around the game were a little less desirable. It's going to be cold and snowy that time of the year in Minneapolis. That's just the way it is. It's still, from what I heard, a beautiful city, but when you look at the grand scheme, I think the city you can say they got a Super Bowl, so it's not like they were locked out. And just when you have the Super Bowl list in front of me of who's hosted the Super Bowl, let's look at the top cities and you can tell me the trend. Miami, New Orleans, Los Angeles, Tampa, Phoenix, San Diego, Houston, and Atlanta. If you haven't put the pieces together, they are all warm weather cities. And in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, Tampa is actually a great place for the game, but I believe Miami will help in claiming one for that Florida region coming up. And then I think Tampa would be competing with all those new stadiums and places, so the city would miss out for that reason, but it's not like they're not capable of hosting. With Detroit at Ford Field, a good stadium, but not as advanced now as I think US Bank Stadium, which faces the similar cold weather optics anyway. So I think if the league decides to go to the northern Midwest again anyways, they're probably going to US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Now, Pasadena at the Rose Bowl, I just think there's too much luxury seating in the other stadiums and some eye candy for the league to want to go back to the Rose Bowl at this point. So you could fit in a ton of people, which would be kind of cool, and I think would honestly make sense. But then again, on the contrary side, like I said, it's kind of about having the nice amenities, and also not a good look now that UCLA is trying to abandon the place. And lastly, at Arlington AT&T Stadium, I just kind of touched on this, and there isn't a completely obvious reason that the stadium can't host another Super Bowl in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with Arlington in between. There's more than enough to do. There's hotel space, usually pretty good winter weather, but I say usually because given the place hosted one in 2011, the league hasn't gone back since. It just makes me think it's not part of the plan going forward. And it's important to note, again, there was a once in a while ice storm that hit the last time there was a Super Bowl there, and I heard that kind of made everything logistically a big disaster. So I'm sure the league doesn't want to risk having that happen again. So these are the cities I see getting a Super Bowl over the coming years, but let me know in the comments below what cities and stadiums you see hosting the big game in the years to come. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.